All right. So, Jimmy, we've got a theist waiting to get in from Ohio, the heart of it all. Should we bring him in? Awesome. So, we're going to bring in John from Ohio. And John says, what evidence do you have to deny God's existence? Is that the question you want to ask, John?
Yeah. And then just further discuss, topics related to that.
Right. So I think the question I would ask is which God, right? So my claim has always been there probably is like a logical God you could appeal to that doesn't break all these laws of physics and all these laws of logic. Maybe kind of a deistic type of a God, but to me, there's nothing to distinguish a deistic God from just a naturalistic explanation, right? So the God concepts that I deny are the God concepts that actually have definition, like the Yahwistic God, the God of the New Testament, the God of Islam, the God of Hinduism, or the gods of Hinduism, and so on and so forth, right? These are the gods that I would emphatically say they simply don't exist, right? But if you're saying, listen, there's just another God and it just happens to be like a deistic God that kicked everything into existence and then fucked off, sure. We have no evidence of that God. I have no reason to believe in that God, but I can't necessarily disprove that God. I could say that there's no evidence for it, though. Just like you can't disprove the tooth fairy exists.
Yeah. So can I speak now?
I mean, I wasn't talking. That's usually how dialogue works, is like you say something, I say something, and we kind of go back and forth.
Okay, no, I was just making sure because I can't catch the YouTube stream right now. I think I'm a couple minutes behind. But okay, I agree with everything you said. But I would argue that why don't we go back a step instead of like picking a religion and saying, oh, the Hindu God, the Islam God, the Christian God. The basic notion of a creator existing, one creator, right? If there was polytheism, there'd be multiple gods and there would be no order, right? I think we could all agree that there's order in this world.
We can't agree on that.
That's why we're here.
No, we disagree there.
You don't agree that there's order?
No, that's not what you said. You said if there was polytheism, then there would be chaos, and we should all be able to agree on that. But that's a claim that you're making that you would then have to substantiate. If there were polytheist gods, hold on. You would have to establish polytheism. B, you'd have to establish that chaos would ensue. And now I've got a single shot of me on the screen, so I'm going to talk a little bit longer so that the crew in the back didn't waste their time. Oh, there we go. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm not arguing polytheism exists. I'm saying if there was multiple gods, just like if there was multiple leaders at any point, you would have different opinions or different ways of wanting to do certain things, and there would be no order. That's my logic behind it. I'm not claiming any like factual, naturalistic, or physical evidence.
Are you a Christian?
No.
Okay. Well, I think the example that we get from the Trinity would pretty much prove that wrong, right? So we would assume that if there are multiple gods, that they would all be in one accord, because they would be all knowing, and they would know all things, right? So I think the basic definition of God being that they'd be all knowing, omnibenevolent, and all powerful means that they would be on the same page with things. Like the reason why we disagree on stuff is because we have different sets of knowledge and different life experiences, and like Jimmy knows things that I don't know. You know things that I don't know. And I know things that you don't know. That's why we disagree on things. But if we have multiple gods, we would presume that all of them are on the same page.
Yeah, but you guys are pretty militaristic. You guys are like militaristic atheists. Like it's not just you're agnostic where you believe possibly it could be.
What's a militaristic atheist?
I mean, you guys are pretty hardlining. I mean, it's like just kind of another term to say like you guys are hardliners, right? Like this, just like there's extremists in religious sects.
How are we extremists though? How are we extremists? We're opening a dialogue.
You're pretty defiant on your.
You're yelling at us right now. So chill out. Just chill for a second. You're the one that's yelling and cutting me off. I'm not even. I think I have a pretty approachable tone right now, and I'm kind of asking, how is it that we are militant? You called and you said some things, and then we asked you for proof of those things, and then gave you reasons why we might think those things are wrong. And Justin did a good job of talking about the Trinity. I would take it a different way and say, well, even if there was polytheism, we still know that some gods are hierarchically above others. And so there may not be chaos. There may, in fact, by that logic, be one God that's in charge and gives orders and maintains a hierarchy via the other gods beneath that God. And that's not only in Christianity. That is something that goes back thousands of years to ancient Mesopotamian, Sumerian cultures, Egyptian cultures, right? So this is not me being militaristic. I think that we're having a pretty, amicable dialogue with you. There's no reason for you to yell at us and change the subject. You can talk all about the polytheism and the chaos, or whatever other point you wanted to bring up. But what I would say to your call also, you want to know what proof we have that God doesn't exist. I would ask you in turn, why would we need any proof at all? Wouldn't your proof that God does exist be good enough for you? Like, why call us and ask us? We're atheists.
Okay, and just to touch back on what you said, I apologize if you feel like I was yelling. I'm just a very passionate person. But to touch on a couple points, okay, so the first point was your definition of God, right? Like you're saying there's this hierarchy, there's multiple gods. I think we need to start there, right? Like what is your definition of God?
I'm sorry, I have to interject. I have to interject, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I did not say that there are multiple gods and that there is a hierarchy. I am saying that the literature and the archaeology of the past shows those things, which would be, if it were true, in contradiction to the claim that you made, where polytheism equals, or multiple gods, I should say, equals chaos. And I don't necessarily think that that's the case, but we're digressing a little bit. But that I want to clarify that I am not making a claim that there are multiple gods. Okay, so or a hierarchy. But continue, please.
And okay. Jimmy, to your point, I guess the question I would ask is, let's imagine that you were right. Let's imagine that multiple gods did result in chaos. Okay, so what? That doesn't mean that God exists, right? You haven't solved anything yet. The universe is chaos. Have you seen this shit?
There is no order. Yeah, my argument is there would be no order. That's why I'm saying that
order of
you
what?
Wouldn't have order, meaning order in the way you see life as it is, right? When you look at Planck's,
I wouldn't mean
or any of these other.
Why?
What's that?
Why would these things not exist?
So matter existing in the form that it does, where everything is able to come together the way it does. Is only, like you've studied, you know physics, right? Like there's, people a lot smarter than you and I that have looked at these different constants, one that.
But you're not answering my question. My question is, why can these things not exist under a polytheistic system, especially the one Jimmy set up, where you've got one at the top that's actually in charge, and you got others that are not in charge that are set to carry out orders? How are they not capable of providing physics?
I mean, so the thing is, we could keep going on and what if? I mean, what we know is what we have now.
John, it was your claim. John, I need you to focus. Okay. So here's what's happened. All right. You're saying stuff, and then we're responding to the words coming out of your mouth. We're responding directly to your arguments. And then when we finish talk, you don't respond to what we say. You run off to something else. Dialogues don't work that way. Like when you talk and we respond to you, the next thing you're supposed to do is respond to the thing that we said. So please respond to the claim that we're asking you to defend. You said that if there was a system of polytheism, that we wouldn't have the laws of physics. Can you support that claim?
Well, I can't. No, I can't. I mean, we're speaking in logic and all hypothetical.
Okay, then the initial claim is dog shit. It's not an actual argument. If you're just making a claim that you have no support for, then it's just another unsupported claim. It's meaningless. I could say that all the laws of physics were created by the physics unicorn, and that's equally as plausible as whatever you're positing now.
Yeah, well, that's not the argument here. I'm not talking about no physics unicorn. My argument here is that.
Are you denying the physics unicorn?
Well, I'm not denying. I just there's just
what proof do you have that the physics unicorn doesn't exist, John? John, what proof do you have that the physics unicorn doesn't exist? Oh shit. Okay, well there you go. Physics unicorn exists, guys. He's got no proof against the physics unicorn.
But do you have proof? Do you have a proof for its existence, or are you just throwing things out?
That's a good question.
What kind of conversation are we getting into?
That's a good question. So to your point, John, do you have proof that your God exists? Okay, let's turn the tables there, right? So we can hold you to the same standard. Okay. So now is a good opportunity to introduce your argument for the God that you believe in. And I understand it's not the Christian God, but it's a God. And now you can tell us what evidence you have that's so good.
Okay. Well, so I'll just give you my spiel if I could just go for like 30 seconds because I keep getting interrupted. And you're saying I'm not answering your questions. It's because I'm there's a lot of points being thrown here.
Okay.
We got a timer somewhere, don't we?
All right. So here we go. Go ahead.
The idea of the idea of the existence of a God comes back.
John, can you say it louder? We can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, you have 45 seconds, and we'll give you extra 15. Go ahead.
No. So the existence of God goes back to the origins of the universe and whether or not our universe spawned from another universe. So you could either believe that the universe was always here or we spawned from another universe, but you go back multiple universes or whatever, there has to be some kind of origin that started. And either you believe that the universe was always here or you believe a creator brought all that. How did the creator get here? How did the universe get here? You take the pick of either or. I choose the idea that a creator was always here and there wasn't just universes that were spawning that eventually led to our Big Bang and our universe creating. And so that's the argument to base the idea of a creator, meaning a God or whatever you want to define it as, always being here, the existence of him always being here. From there, we could start talking about, okay, what is this creator? I mean, what is the definition? What's your definition? I mean,
I think we got your. I think we gave you a little more than a minute. I think we got the gist. So you just gave us a choice, essentially. The universe either came from a God, or it's always been here and it came from somewhere else. That's what you said. Okay. And I would say to that, why do I only get two choices? Why can't I say, I don't know how the universe started, but I also don't think that a God was involved? Why is that not a choice?
Well, so first of all, yeah, you could always say you don't know, but we're not having this conversation trying to play hypothetical or say we don't know. We're trying to come to a conclusion, right? We're trying to use our brains and our logic and our philosophy to come to a conclusion here, right? And then the idea, about the multiple universes is infinite regression. Infinite regression will always destroy the argument of a universe always or
give me the logical contradiction between the universe existing forever. Where's the logical contradiction?
A universe. Well, we know our current universe is finite. Would you agree to that premise?
No, it's not.
You don't agree that our universe did have a beginning, right? Meaning it is finite?
No, I don't agree to that. What evidence do you have that the universe once didn't exist?
Basic modern science that talks about the Big Bang. I mean,
it doesn't. The Big Bang doesn't say there was nothing before the Big Bang. All modern science doesn't make that claim. That's not a claim that modern science teaches. In fact, I do a live stream every Sunday morning with an actual physicist who would explain to you that is not even close to what modern physicists believe. They don't believe that there was nothing that gave rise to something. That's something that you believe.
Happened at the Big Bang?
No, the universe didn't come into being at the Big Bang. The Big Bang just describes the expansion of the known universe into what we know it to be today. It doesn't say that nothing gave rise to something.
Well, this is the first I'm hearing of this, and I'm a big theoretical physicist follower. I follow all the big names.
Somehow I find that doubtful. Even like Lawrence Krauss wrote a whole book, Something from Nothing, where he explained in chapter 9 that nothing doesn't actually mean nothing. And he's like a pop physicist. Everyone knows Lawrence Krauss. I don't think you follow physics all that well.
I know Neil deGrasse Tyson and Michael, I don't know how to say his last name. I'm pretty bad with last names, but I follow a couple of them. I mean, I'm not great with names, but again, going back to the conversation we're having is the idea is that something was always here. Either you believe a creator was always here or you believe the universe was always here. But saying I don't know, I mean, we're not having this dialogue,
Right.
this conversation about I don't know. I mean, we could say I
well,
don't
we
know
do
what
know.
happened.
We do.
Mexico
We do
in
know.
19
This is the last thing I'll say, John. This is the last thing I'll say because we're over on time and I want to give Jimmy a chance to talk to us. So this is the last thing I'm going to say. We do know, all right? So you and I and Jimmy, we all agree that the universe does exist, right? Can we agree to that?
Agreed.
Okay. Now, we all agree that one,
Yes.
the one, the universe exists. We can agree on that. That's something I think we all agree and know. Okay. Now, it also seems to be that matter can't be created nor destroyed, and something can't come from nothing. Those are things that I think we can probably all agree on. So the logical conclusion is that the thing that we do know to exist must have just always existed, versus this thing that we have no evidence of brought all of it into existence. We have no idea that God exists. So why would we posit that this fictional entity must exist to do a thing to bring us to the part where we know it does exist, when the thing that we know exists doesn't really need that much of an explanation for? We don't need to explain how it came into existence if it's eternal.
I agree with everything you said, but the reality is we can't go and empirically prove God exists. I can't go to the lab. By the way, I'm a PhD immunologist. Okay, I got my PhD. I can't go in the lab and figure out whether God exists or not and do an experiment. It's supernatural. It's above the natural. So when you talk about metaphysical, we have to use our brain and our logic. We can't say, oh, well, I want to see God strike me down right now. I mean, it's the classic agnostic, atheistic argument, right? Like, if God exists, prove it right now. And
well, the metaphysical arguments for God all fail. All of them. Every metaphysical argument for God fails. Everyone. This show is here every week. Every week, nearly, there is somebody calling in who's got a partial degree or a full degree in philosophy, making bad metaphysical claims that they're giving horrible syllogism that they think ends in God, and it never does. So philosophy is not going to save you here.
I mean, again, I'm just,
philosophy is not going to save you here.
It's not philosophy saving. I mean, we're using our brain and our logic. You've come to a conclusion in life, right? To be an atheist or believe whatever you believe in life. You use your brain for that. You use your logic, right? You didn't go in the lab and say, hey, I'm going to start thinking this way because I'm going to, use some physical properties to get me to have the belief system that I do. No, you use your brain and logic. It's the same argument for metaphysical existence, right?
And I use my brain and logic to conclude that there's no need for a God and there's no evidence for a God. There's no argument that ends in God that is coherent.
Well, my argument is that either you accept the universe was always here or a creator was always here. And if you can't get past that, then we can't go anywhere else. And then your definition of God is the other aspect we would have to go past.
No,
if we
because
can't get there, then I don't think anything else matters. Talking about the Bible, talking about the Quran, talking about the Sikh, like all these different religions doesn't make any sense.
John, you're spiraling a little bit off the track here, because I want to stick with what you just said. You're insisting that we have a conversation about the beginning of the universe or if God is real. And you're not listening when we tell you that is a false dichotomy. I mean, that is not the only way to view things. Okay. I can't have a conversation with you if you are dictating to me that there's only one outcome for this conversation. I'm simply not going to pretend that I know whether or not the universe was always here. All of the evidence seems to show that the universe was probably always here until I get evidence that shows it was not, to Justin's point. And I have nothing that says that about God. So I don't fall within your requirements, because I don't accept God, and I don't accept that I have the evidence to make a sufficient explanation or to come up with a sufficient explanation about the nature of the universe. It's quite possible that it did not always exist. It's quite possible that it may not always exist, but I'm not going to figure that out with you right now. Okay. And I don't care if you're a PhD immunologist. I don't want to hear, these different fallacies. The God of the gaps fallacy. Well, you don't know the nature of the universe, so there must be a God that's the cause of it. That doesn't logically follow. And I appreciate that you're an educated and studied gentleman, but you being an immunologist has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So I'm not sure why you're throwing that in there. I'm happy to say that I have a master's degree in international relations and I'm a former military intelligence analyst. What does that do for the conversation? Absolutely does nothing. Let's just accept that we don't have the answer and not tack God on to the end of it. And that's what I have to leave you with.
Well, okay, last statement, and I appreciate everything you just said. The only reason I mentioned PhD immunologist is because lab, like being in a lab and going to do an experiment. That's all. Secondly, the reason
I understand that. I'm sorry, I understand that, but I can't accept that we're going to figure out this problem now, with or without a lab. That's what I'm saying. Like we're not going to have a conversation where we either fall on one of the two outcomes that you gave me or not. It's just not going to happen. I need evidence, and you should know that. So that's all I'm saying.
No, so I'm just saying empirical physical evidence, you cannot prove it with metaphysical things and supernatural things. I mean, it's impossible. And I don't know if you could agree with me on that. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but that's a conversation for another time. All I want to leave this conversation with is that I'm not trying to pick you, like have you pick one way or another. Oh, I like either God exists or the universe exists. I'm just saying that we're having this conversation here, right? You guys have this show to try to like dissect whether or not, right? You guys are atheists, to dissect whether a creator or God exists, right? Like before you get to religion and you guys start spitting your factoids against the Bible and all the other religious texts, it's like we have to get through this section, which is
I'm sorry. Have you ever watched this show? Have you not watched the thousands of times that a generic God concept has been defended by people on this show? Like we don't just attack specific God concepts. We will talk about all God concepts. And what I'm hearing now is just complaints. You're just saying, listen, I don't like that you're attacking specific God concepts. I want you to only talk about generic God concepts. But we do. Maybe you weren't here for the show, but it happens all the time. And it's also true that like all you're saying right now is that God of the gap should be a viable argument. It's not a viable argument. Even if you believe that something came from nothing, we could just say that it was a naturalistic cause. We don't know what the cause is, but it's metaphysically necessary. And it's got a lot less assumptions than the God hypothesis. So there's so many options to solve the problem that you think actually exists that we don't think exists other than a God concept. And if it wasn't 7:42, 15 minutes past or 12 minutes past our end time, we could get into that. But unfortunately, we've actually got to read these super chats and get off here and end the show. But we appreciate you coming on, John. Come back next week, okay?